You know, as the legend goes, a Shaker woman right here in Harvard, Massachusetts, next door, her name is Tabitha Babbitt. She saw two men struggling with a pit saw and decided to come up with a better option. And it was inspired by her spinning wheel, of all things. She made a small prototype, and that prototype design was eventually enlarged and used in sawmills throughout the country to cut logs into dimensional lumber, and that was in the 18th century. In 1922, Raymond Dewalt, he invented the first radial arm saw. I have one over in the corner. And that was an important step in bringing smaller, more readily usable saws into woodworking and carpentry shops. Then in 1929, Art Edmonds, he created the first portable handheld circular saw. And nearly 100 years later, circular saws like this are used widely in the United States and the world for commercial, residential, and DIY projects. In our head-to-head, we're going to crown the best 7¼ cordless circular saw. Let's get started. So in this test, our testing format, our team evaluated a total of 7 essential categories that we defined important for circular saws. And each of the categories was ranked individually, and a selection was used to declare the overall best 7¼ circular saw. And we based it on the combined test results. First thing was accuracy and line of sight. The accuracy and line of sight of a saw is compared with the ability to basically be able to follow a cut line, right? Performance, power, and speed. We looked at the cutting speed through 2 stacks of 3/4 plywood, AC plywood, as an indicator of the saw's performance. Features. An overall comparison of the features and specifications of the tools was looked at. We looked at weight, and we ranked the tool's weight as bare tools. We also looked at noise, decibel noise. Again, we're not a testing facility. We used a decibel meter. We used basically to measure the tool in a no load and under identical cutting load conditions. Price. Price is important. It's always an important factor when determining which saw is best for a user. We included the current pricing found online for each of the saws as tested at the time of this video. Because we tested DIY and pro grade tools, we didn't include price in the overall ranking scoring. We didn't think that was fair to the pro users. Best value was looked at. Oftentimes this category tends to resonate the most with folks because it identifies a well-performing saw in our test, but it feels good in the wallet, right? Hits the wallet right. As far as specifications goes, we examined 10 saws from 8 manufacturers. If you want to learn more about these saws, you know what I'm going to say. You need to go to the website. You're going to learn things like the voltage, the no load speed, the max cut depth at 90 and 45, bevel capacity, links to the manufacturing, buy links. Also, you'll learn more about our scoring and our testing format. There's more detail. We go into it deeper. And you'll always learn more in the article at ToolBoxBuzz.com than the video. The article is just always more detailed. I want to talk a little bit about the saw blades that we used. Prior to the testing, all of the circular saws were supplied with a task-specific saw blade. We used 2 different blades throughout all of our testing, the Milwaukee 40-tooth 7¼ fine finish blade and the Milwaukee 24-tooth 7¼ framing blade. Using those same saw blades in those task-specific functions allow us to focus on the tools rather than the blades. Controlling the blade variability allows us to assess and focus on motor, battery, and electronics and gauge the overall performance of the saws. Also, to get the saws close when we were determining all this stuff, we chose batteries ranges from 4 to 6 amp hour range. We chose the Milwaukee blades for their precision and longevity. Geek out a little bit about their cobalt-infused tungsten carbide. Plus the Milwaukee blades, they're priced right and they're reliable. All right, so before we roll up our sleeves and jump in, if you're not already, please consider subscribing to this channel. Please hit that subscribe button and click the notification, the bell icon in the top right corner. We appreciate your support. I really do. All right, let's move on. I want to talk about accuracy testing, line of sight. And the winners were both Makita saws, both saws and the Metabo HPT. For our accuracy test, we had an experienced pro user cut plywood using straight edges with each saw, and then rank the equipment depending on how well it performed and how well it cut on the line. The saws were verified for accuracy at their 90 and 45 degree factory bevel setting. We also took a look to see if they could be set and squared and stuff like that, but we didn't score that. The test was performed by single operator to keep the test standardized, to control standardization. We also checked the scale slots on the saw's base plate for accuracy, and ideally, these kerf slots, they should line up with the cut on the motor side of the blade. This way, the reference point is consistent, and the only variable will be the offset between the plate and the blade, or the slot and the blade. Now, when saw plates are accurate, users can make fast rip cuts because you can just quickly line up on that, right? Saves a lot of time. For accuracy category, each of the saws ranked on accuracy, and we looked at a couple of different things. So we looked at line of sight, obviously, that the scale and the slot accuracy, the bevel accuracy set to 45 degrees, the cross-cut accuracy and bevel set at 0 degrees, sorry. And as far as accuracy, and we also looked at the accuracy of that line and the blade as well. We also then moved on to performance and power testing. And the speed at which a circular saw can cut a particular material is a factor of the blade shape, right? Width, diameter, tooth count, tooth shape, blade rotational speed, horizontal force applied. As a saw blade moves through the saw material is going to encounter resistance, and that's going to require more torque and power just to keep the blade spinning at its optimal speed. Now, as a blade edge dulls or too much horizontal force is applied, the saw blade rotational speed begins to slow down. That makes sense. A skilled user can usually tell when the saw is working too hard, and they know when to back off, when too much force is being applied to a cut. And we back off our push a little bit. A more powerful saw, they can counteract that because the resistances are better, and ultimately they'll be able to move more material and cut faster. The test that we did, to test for that power, ultimately the speed of these saws, we wanted to control those cutting variables as much as we could. So we achieved this by using standard blades, using a consistent high quality AC plywood, and controlling the horizontal force applied to the saw. And we did that with a drop weight pulley system and a low friction sliding rig. We used a Craig Accu-Cut sled for its ultimate compatibility across manufacturing saws. The Accu-Cut track, it allows, it secures easily to our testing rig. It's an 8-foot section, can go bigger than 8 feet, and it was indexed with double layer 3/4 plywood underneath. That sled, the Accu-Cut sled, was pulled on a line with a series of low friction pulleys and attached to an 8-pound weight, which provides a consistent 8-pound horizontal force pull to the saw through the cut. 3 cuts were conducted, timed, and averaged and compared. Now, electromechanical micro switches were secured on start and stop sections of the rig, and the time automatically started when the saw was let go and began the cut, and again when it stopped and finished the cut at the end of the track system. We did this to remove the little bit of human error that is associated with the handheld stopwatch, start and stop. After each cut, the track system was cleaned of all sawdust and debris, and before the first run of every cut, the sled was lubricated with silicone as well as the track, and we inspected to ensure and wiped it down to ensure a smooth, low friction cut. The more powerful saws, they were able to basically keep up rotational speed and keep that blade up, therefore removing material faster, quicker, ultimately traveling across the sled and completing this cut in less time. This setup basically allowed us to stress the saws in a non-abusive manner, providing enough performance speed that allowed us to rank them, basically individually, and determine which saw performed the best, was more powerful. I have to tell you that I was impressed with that Craig track system, especially that it allowed us to mount 18 different saws securely to it. It's unbelievable how functional it was. It allows a user just to make straight cuts, accurate, splinter-free cuts without a track saw. And it's way less expensive than a track saw. So the Accu-Cut guides, they're aluminum. They're easily to set up, easy to move and store. So it's a design that makes it simple to set up and just align a track saw-like cut. So check it out. I think it's It's definitely robust and enough for a pro user. It's good enough for a pro user to use. So we were impressed with it, and it worked great for our testing. So the winner of our performance testing for power and speed was Dewalt. It was the DCS 578. That's the Flexvolt. And it crushed the competition in this performance test with an average score of 18 seconds, 8 feet double plywood. Even without the electronic timer, all of us were like, whoa, that was fast. During our subjective testing, when I was using that saw, I pushed it as hard as I could. I cut through 69 inches of LVL in 6.5 seconds, no bogging down. That's impressive. Second place in the performance went to the Milwaukee M18 saw, the fuel saw, with an average score of 21.8 seconds. This saw eats double-laid plywood for breakfast, but when pushed hard through LVL, I stalled it 4 times. Now, Milwaukee has always been a little conservative with their red lithium batteries and their onboard electronics, and like many manufacturers, they build in protections to protect the tool from overloading and drain the battery. But I just feel like those settings might be set just a little bit too low. They're being a little too conservative there. Third place went to the new rigid circular saw with an average time of 22.1 seconds. This newly designed brushless saw performed extremely well in this test. We were impressed with it. The team loved the power in the subjective LVL testing, plywood, and framing lumber that we played with. Rigid tools continues to be a hidden gem in the tool industry. More pros need to try these tools out. All right, we moved on to best features. The winner of that was the Hilti saw, the new Hilti saw. Circular saw is basically the workhorse of many job sites, and they're synonymous with portable, fast, accurate field cuts, right? The flexibility and precision of tools basically make it invaluable to the job site professional. It is never easy to compare a tool's features with different brands, but the devil is in the details, so a feature comparison is warranted. The entire team used all of the tools in a variety of cutting configurations and tests. We cut stringers, plywood, LVL, KD lumber, bevels, to rate 6 different features on these saws on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the best. The features that we looked at were blade change, the spindle lock blade change, the wrench, bevel, blade depth settings, trigger and grip. We looked at the electric brake and put some timing on that, and we looked at sightline, scale blade sights. A new blade, let's talk about that for a second. A new blade for your application is critical. It's going to ensure quality cut, productivity on the job site. Changing that blade should be easy, safe, and convenient. When evaluating the blade change on the 10 saws, although there were no clear standouts, they were all pretty basic changes, there were a few distinctions that are worthy of noting. The best blade change we felt was the Dewalt. Nothing exciting on this blade change assessment, but the key discriminator was that the Dewalt has onboard storage wrench. It is quickly accessed, it stores great locks in. The arbor lock clicks a bunch of times. All the saws have an onboard Allen key with the exception of the Dewalt, which has that angled wrench. Now, during our evaluation, we noted 3 saws worthy of noting a few things to you. The Makita 36 volt saw has a very stiff arbor lock spring. We found it difficult to actuate and hold it down. The Bosch 18 volt tolerances on the blade guard are so tight that it makes blade changing awkward. The 2 Dewalt saws have the most arbor lock detents. There's actually like 28 of them compared to the Milwaukee that has 4. The rest of the saws were somewhere between 4 and 12 detents. Now we looked at bevel, and the best bevel was a tie between Hilti, Cobalt, and Makita. As a remodeling contractor, if I'm setting a circular saw bevel to 22.5 or 45 or greater, the scale is probably good enough for me. If I need dead-on bevel, I'm going to use a miter saw or table saw or probably the track saw. That said, I'd like to operate a saw that has an accurate bevel scale and I don't have to work to set it, hence detents, right, and a marking. A circular saw is a rough cutting saw in a sense where speed is everything. Framers are going to move fast. A bevel scale allows you to quickly set and verify bevel settings, and it's a key performance indicator in this category. The best beveling saws were Hilti, Makita, the 36 volt, and the Cobalt, and they all had knob controls and positive stop detents at 45 and 22.5. The Hilti and 36 volt had the best action in their selectors and were easy to use, set, and understand, quickly intuitive. Most of the saws bevel past 45, 46 degrees. The Dewalt goes to 57. Hilti is 50. Cobalt is 55 degrees. Makita 36 volt bevels at 56 degrees. And that Hilti has positive stops that were money. And the action on that really just killed it. We loved it. The Hilti saw has a super solid build, stop knob, great bevel, easy to bevel, great depth scales. The Cobalt scale is similar to Milwaukee, really nice etched, laser etched scale that's screwed onto the tool, a large, comfortable lever, surprisingly nice action and detailing. The Makita 40 volt and Metabo HPT have positive stops at 45 degrees. With a lever option, you're going to maneuver it to get to 48, 55. The team really likes the Milwaukee scale, probably the best scale out of them all. For such a powerful and smooth cutting saw with outstanding line of sight scales, and we just can't figure out why that bevel does not have positive detents. A user should not have to hunt for 45 degrees. I want to set and forget and go. The Ryobi followed the pack with a simple, very basic plastic scale. Nobody was impressed with it. And the bevel line of sight was underwhelming. So they need to improve that a little bit. Let's go now talk about best blade depth adjustment. And the winners of that, it was a tie there as well. It was the Hilti and the Makita 40 volt. While the team feels that setting the depth of a circular saw, it's best done by setting the blade projection just a little bit past the depth of the material you're cutting, there is something to be said about a gauge that can quickly and accurately set the depth of a saw. Precision in tooling and gauges simply carry through in overall tool performance, quality, etc. The Hilti in Makita 40 volt had the smoothest blade depth action in adjustment with legible, accurate, high contrast scales. In contrast, we found the Metabo HPT bevel action stiff, doesn't offer a depth scale. We did note that the Metabo HPT does have a cast plate with a really highly polished machine edge, which really was a real nice fit and finish. Good looking fit and finish on that tool. We looked at triggers and grip. Hilti and Makita 3640 volts took that. For a circular saw, you have to have a good grip, right? You want sufficient friction basically between your hand and the handle. Probably more important when your hand is sweaty or you're dirty. All of the saws had non-slip, non-conductive, compressible kind of material for a grip. When looking at tool triggers, though, we considered frequent movement of the index finger on the trigger while operating the saw. We can all agree that this movement really should be comfortable. It should be an easy pull. For example, a longer trigger allows more fingers to be used, which could be more comfortable long term, reduce discomfort. Contrast that to pinch points between, say, the trigger and the bottom of the housing, where it can be uncomfortable and maybe cause hot spots over the course of a day. The Hilti and both Makita saws have the most comfortable grip, a smooth, rounded trigger with excellent action and no pinch points. The Dewalt has a trigger guard under it, and the trigger has a pinch point right at the bottom of the trigger and that tool housing trigger guard. While many small hand users will probably pull the trigger higher on that trigger, larger hand users, larger finger users will find a pinch point. The Milwaukee and Ryobi triggers require the most pull force, and couple that with a little bit sharp edges, resulting in some trigger hotspots long term. Now, while using these saws, a few of the team commented on how nicely placed the angle on the Bosch saw was, the handle. That angle handle is positioned perfectly for pushing a saw forward, especially cutting and ripping sheet goods. All of the other tools, they kind of have a downward, kind of higher angle on them. Let's move on to best sight lines. The winners were both Dewalt saws. Every saw has notches, and they make in the front of the plate, some on the back, that show you where the blade is going to cut. But not all of them are intuitive, easy to follow, or accurate. So when it matters, you want to be able to line that up and verify where you're going to cut and go. And if it really matters, you're going to watch the blade. Runtime, ergonomics, power, all well and good, but if you can't see what you're cutting, you can't see that line, accuracy and productivity will suffer. The clipped guard on both of those Dewalt saws provided the best line of sight where the blade meets the wood. All right, we talked about some standout features, something we've been including lately, and there are a few standout features that affect performance, safety, and user experience, UX. Rafter hooks. Most of the saws had a 2x4 rafter hook with the exception of that Metabo HPT and Ryobi, which did not have hooks. The two Makita saws have locations to add optional hooks at an additional cost. I don't know why. The Hilti Rafter hook mounts on top of the saw and can get in the way of the user actuating the safety switch. As a right-handed user, I found I had to orient the hook to the left so I could, and vice versa for Ethan, who's a left-handed user. So we were annoyed by that. We didn't like that. We looked at dust ports. The Hilti has a really nice integrated swivel dust port with a wide orifice chute. Both Makita saws, rigid and Milwaukee, have dust ports. One interesting observation, the Makita and rigid dust ports, if you look inside those dust ports, you will see that they have a massive choke point where the dust point basically turns 90. The result is a much reduced flow. I don't know why they did that, but it is. Bluetooth vacuum actuation, said that fast. Both Makita saws have what's called AWS, Autostart wireless system, and it's a Bluetooth technology. It enables wireless power on-off of an AWS-equipped dust extractor. Makita AWS tools have a small wireless transmitter that inserts into the handle of those tools. That transmitter communicates with the Makita dust extractor and an equipped tool. The AWS-equipped tool also communicates with any corded dust extractor with an onboard AC outlet. And you can use an AWS adapter for that if you have a different vacuum. The adapter and the AWS transmitter plug into that outlet, and basically the tool will turn on the vacuum. The transmitter and adapter are optional, do cost more money, but it's convenience, it's long-term time savings, efficiency. It's probably an investment that you should consider if you like Makita. Now here's an interesting one. It's called silent mode, and it's on the Metabo HPT saw. And it's an auto-sensing mode that reduces the blade RPM to 2,000 and then adjusts the RPM back up to the maximum 4,300 RPMs based on cutting demand. There is a mode selector switch. It's located under the handle where the trigger is. And this decreased blade speed basically produces a less audible noise that's more pleasing to the ear. Now, when load on the tool grows, the silent mode is selected, selects from and switches to what's called power mode, and then back to silent mode once the load drops again and reduces. Well, all right, we looked at noise, decibels. The winner of that was Metabo HPT. OSHA. OSHA requires, or allows, I should say, 8 hours of exposure for up to 90 decibels, and if the exposure is 95 or greater, that time drops dramatically. Circular saws allowed, and hearing protection is required at all times. To test for noise, we test it in a very consistent manner with a noise meter. We measure the saw's decibel levels under no load and load at fixed distances, roughly the spacing a user's ears would be. Decibel measurements are relative to any environment, and the important takeaway here is that the saws were measured against each other consistently. We tested these saws at a no load and under load capacity, where it was louder and the cutting material dictates that noise. The quietest running saw was the Metabo HPT. The saw implements a soft start feature. It reduces the spikes in activation noise and continued to produce less noise during a steady state. This saw was the quietest saw even with that novel kind of silent mode switched off. All right, price. Winner of price, no surprise there, it's Ryobi. They're always priced. The cost of the tool, though, can drive purchases. We all agree. We can all agree that the cost is a critical consideration when purchasing tools, especially to those starting out in the trades. We also recognize that most contractors are brand loyal and will most likely stick to their existing battery platform rather than branching out and developing a new line of cordless tools. Although there are a few unicorns out there, because I see your comments. The bulk of these saws may be found at your local big box stores, and all of them can be found online at Acme Tools. At the time of this test, we had an advanced sample sent to us from Hilti. It's the Hilti Neuron saw. That saw is not out yet, but it is coming soon. Brand new saw, very impressive saw, well detailed. Below, we've indicated in our chart our current pricing at the time of this video. So you can see that. The Ryobi costs $99, available only at Home Depot and online. The Ryobi positions itself as a pro-featured tool brand that is attractively priced to DIYers and serious enthusiasts, and obviously some pro users do it. Coming in $20 more was the Metabo HPT, followed by the Cobalt at $50 more. Now, on contrast, the highest price saw was the newer Makita 40 volt. It was the most expensive saw at the time of this video. It's a model GSH02Z, I think, and it sells for $339. And it can be found at Acme Tools and has like a delivery time rate of about a week to get. The saw performed really well in our testing and has an outstanding design, fit and finish, and some really nice features such as track compatibility base plate, excellent ergonomics, really good power, and obviously that's going to contribute to the premium price. The next category that we evaluated was Best Value Circular Saw. And the winner of that was the Metabo HPT 7¼ inch saw. Best Value category is a favorite for us mostly because it crowns an outstanding performer at a reasonable price. This category is where we directly compare price to performance. If you're heavily invested in a tool platform, maybe you drink the green, yellow, blue, or red Kool-Aid, you may not value this category. But it certainly caters to first-time or budget-conscious consumers, as well as entry-level tradespeople. It's a way to get into a platform. The Metabo HPT scored middle of the pack in our evaluation with a perfect accuracy score, lower weight, and which many on the team commented on how light this tool was. It came in second for lowest price, selling as a bare tool at $120. It also has some nice features, quietest saw, even without that silent mode. All right, after all of this, which saw is deserving of the best cordless 7¼ inch circular saw for 2022? The answer to that is the Dewalt Flexvolt, the 578. Choosing the best 7¼ inch circular saw, it wasn't simple or easy to do. We're convinced that we went through it point by point to give you a good evaluation. A product that is recognized best in class, that outperforms its competitors in every category or segment. In comparison to the rivals, these items, they usually have the highest level of quality or utility. With the exception of weight in the category, the Flexvolt excelled in every test assessment we put it to. It's a fast-cutting, well-built, powerful saw with accurate settings and some nice features. The new Hilti Neuron came in second, crushing the evaluation in features, performing top 3 and 4 in just about every category. While not available yet, the saw is going to RSVP for around $279. Everyone on the team was excited about the Hilti's new innovation and performance, and they liked using the saw. They all went to it. The engineering and the fit and finish on this saw, really nicely done. Bevel stop knob, legible and accurate scales, the 45 stop, real nice, real nice. Next off for Hilti, track saw compatibility, please. As a company, Hilti's been slow. They've been slow to innovate or update their tools, and that was evidenced by a lot of our past head-to-heads if you watched them all. This Hilti saw was really well balanced, given its long length, super solid build, powerful cutting, smooth cutting, nice adjustments. Welcome back, Hilti. All right, third place went to both Makita saws. The Makita saws were an easy team favorite during our testing, with common comments from everybody saying things like smooth, decent power, felt great in the hands, love the features, really well built. My first saw 31 years ago was a corded 7¼ Makita, and using this saw brought me right back. I thought that the Makita saws were the smoothest cutting with the best features, personally. The team really likes that the Makita 40 volt, and that it offers track compatibility, serious accuracy, and outstanding features. Now, when comparing that 40 volt to the 36 volt Makita, the team felt that with the exception of the 40 volt being more powerful in that track option, no one on the team really felt that that alone was enough for them to switch from 1836 volt to jump to a 40 volt platform. All right, so to conclude our testing, in all of our head-to-head tests, we strive to provide you with the most detailed facts and comprehensive data possible. Our pro contractor team committed a substantial amount of time and effort in this head-to-head test analysis. The tests and evaluations were difficult and time-consuming, and ultimately, we're limited in scope because we're not a professional testing organization. Our crew simply just does not have the time to test these saws extended periods of time for evaluation of durability or longevity like a lot of you ask in your comments. And we can't possibly test every single application for which they might be utilized. Different tests, they'll show different results. So how did we get to our final rankings? After carefully studying the data, we rank the saws accordingly. Some of the rankings may not be relevant to you. For example, perhaps you're only looking for power statistics, or simply because you're a framer or something, or you're looking for cost. The best thing for you to do is just look through the data and just pick and choose what you want. Pick those saws based on those charts. You get to pick the information you want or don't want, and that's why we do it this way. We also understand that many tradespeople have invested a significant amount of time and money into a battery platform, and staying with that brand is a huge consideration. There's loyalty involved. Our goal was to provide you with the most information needed to make your own choices. I want to thank you guys for following along in this head-to-head, and if you have a moment, please check out our other head-to-head tests. We've done a bunch of them. Please consider subscribing and click on that the bell icon, the bell notification icon. And when you do that, it helps our rankings. It also lets you know when we publish our next video. Lastly, check out ToolBoxBuzz on Instagram. And I want to let you guys know that this video was sponsored by Acme Tools. And for three generations, Acme Tools has been a family-owned business that services pro contractors, woodworkers, and DIYers with huge selections of tools from all the manufacturers. They offer free shipping, processing, fast processing, huge stock on tools, price guarantees, and they also have cool package deals. So check them out online at acmetools.com. And thanks for watching.